and we got that money. It's the largest infrastructure transportation grant in the history of the state of Tennessee. If you have a congressional delegation that has 9 members and they're all Republican and they all bend a knee to Donald Trump, which they've done on this redistricting. This is for Donald Trump to get one more vote, he thinks, to stop him from being impeached. If you have 9 votes that are all alike, you have a Democratic president, which you're likely to have in 2028, but you'll have at some point, but I think you'll have it in 2028.
A congressman just called the President of the United States a gangster, on the record, with his name attached, walking out the door. Steve Cohen isn't running. He has nothing left to lose. And that is exactly why every word he said today should terrify anyone paying attention. Tennessee just erased its only Black majority congressional district. Not by accident, by design. 9 Republican lawmakers bent the knee, and Memphis paid the price. If this makes your blood boil, hit like and subscribe, because what Cohen exposed today is only the beginning, and we are not done pulling this thread.
First, let me finish up your question. The thing is, it's voting. People need to vote, but I don't know. We could have a deal per se. I mean, Donald Trump is a gangster. This is a gangster move to call the Texas governor and say, "Find me 5 new congressmen," and I'm entitled to them because I carried the state. That's not the way congressional districts go. Is who carries the state. That's the way the Electoral College goes. I just went over to get my paper notarized to send to this coordinator of elections, and there's on the ground floor of Longworth, there's a whole bunch of murals about the house, and there's this big one that says, "Welcome to the People's House." This is the People's House. And they said Tennessee is a conservative state. My district isn't conservative. Memphis is part of Tennessee, but it's not conservative. Nashville's not conservative, and they got gored after the 2000 census as well. So the 2 major cities don't have congressmen. And in Nashville, the 3 people that were in the suburbs and the rural areas, none of them opened up an office in Nashville for people to get constituent services. None of them got a community project for Nashville. They probably didn't go to Nashville unless it was to ride in one of those open-air buses and drink.
Let that land for a second. A sitting congressman, not a pundit, not a Twitter account, not a cable news host, walked past a mural that says, "Welcome to the People's House," and then stood in front of cameras and said the man running that house is a gangster. That word was not a slip. It was not hyperbole. Steve Cohen meant every syllable of it, and he backed it up with a factual record that is impossible to dispute. Here is the playbook Trump ran. He called Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, and told him to redraw congressional maps mid-decade, something that almost never happens, something Tennessee itself had a law against until Republicans repealed it specifically because Trump asked them to. Then he turned to Tennessee. 9 Republican congressmen, 9 people who received federal appropriations, infrastructure dollars, and constituent services from a Democratic colleague, the same man they just helped destroy. And every single one of them folded. Frustrated, not one dissented, not one said the quiet part privately. They all bent the knee in public and on the record. And what they got in exchange for their loyalty? They eliminated the only majority Black congressional district in the state of Tennessee, a district that had been protected under the Voting Rights Act, a district that the Supreme Court, specifically Alito and Roberts, as Cohen put it, had just gutted the defenses of, right on cue, clearing the runway for exactly this. The timing is not a coincidence. The Supreme Court weakens the Voting Rights Act. Tennessee Republicans immediately call a special session. They give candidates 7 days from the bill's passage to file and make the withdrawal deadline the same day. You can't react. You can't adjust. The trap was already closed before anyone knew it was set. This is not redistricting. This is a coordinated, multi-branch operation to silence a city. Memphis, a majority Black city, a Democratic city, a city Cohen called his home and his Jones for 47 years in elected office, has been carved into 3 Republican-controlled districts, each drawn with near mathematical precision to contain almost exactly 29 to 32% Black voters. State Representative Bo Mitchell asked Cohen in a committee hearing, "What are the odds that 2 districts come out at exactly 29% black if race wasn't a factor?" Cohen told him he was going to go buy a Powerball ticket, better odds, and he wasn't joking.
Well, it's power, but it's definitely race too. In the redistricting, 2 of the new districts have 29% black population. The third one is, I think, 31 or 32%. It's within the margin of error. If you didn't consider race and you drew 3 new districts and 2 of them were exactly 29%, that in itself, in their maps, militate against what they have alleged, that it has nothing to do with race but with policy and with party. It wouldn't come down with 29%. As one of the Bo Mitchell, who is a state representative, asked me in one of the hearings when I testified before 2 of the committees in Nashville last week. He said, "You're the father of the Tennessee State Lottery. The odds of winning Powerball are like 1 in 11 million. What are the odds of 2 districts coming out with 29% African American and 1 with 32% if race wasn't an issue?" And I told him I was going to go out and buy a Powerball ticket.
Better odds. That line hits like a closed fist because it is not rhetoric, it is math. You do not accidentally draw 3 congressional districts across an entire major American city and land at 29%, 29%, and 32% black population by chance. You do that when race is the primary variable you are engineering around. Cohen knows it. The Republicans know it. The lawyers filing the lawsuits know it. The only question is whether the courts will say it out loud. But here is what does not make the news cycle, and what should. This redistricting operation did not just target a congressman, it targeted a constituency. The African American voters of Memphis had exercised something genuinely rare in American politics: the ability to build a cross-racial coalition powerful enough that Steve Cohen, a white Jewish man from Memphis, won 9 straight elections in a 62% black district without losing a single precinct. Against the 18-year former mayor of Memphis, against prominent attorneys, against formidable opponents who reflected the district demographically, he won every time because the community chose the representative who showed up for them, who fought for them, who did not treat their vote as a transaction. That kind of trust takes decades to build, and Tennessee Republicans erased it in a special session that lasted 4 minutes on the floor. House Democrats boycotted and abstained. Republicans rubber-stamped a bill that had not even been finalized. Governor Bill Lee signed it into law within days. The whole operation, from the Supreme Court weakening the Voting Rights Act to the governor's signature, ran like a machine that had one output: make Memphis ungovernable for Democrats and strip black voters of a representative they actually chose. Cohen mentioned something in passing that deserves its own segment. When Memphis needed a new bridge across the Mississippi River, a $1 billion infrastructure project, earthquake-resilient lanes, something the business community had dreamed about for years, it was the Republican establishment, the Chamber of Commerce, that came to Cohen's office and asked him to go to Secretary Buttigieg, a Democratic congressman on the Transportation Committee with the relationships and the seniority to deliver. And he delivered $400 million, the largest transportation infrastructure grant in Tennessee history. Republicans in this delegation took that money, celebrated it, and then voted to eliminate the man who got it for them. They just destroyed their own lifeline to the next Democratic administration. As Cohen said, they didn't learn. They didn't learn at all.
This could affect the country for a long time with the House, and there's more seats in the South they're going to try to get in Georgia, in Florida. They're going to have an election in Alabama in August. They'll get a seat, I imagine, in Louisiana. If Republicans continue to hold the House, and if Speaker Johnson continues to be he basically serves Donald Trump. He doesn't lead the House. We are not an equal branch of government and a check and balance on the administration. We're a branch of the administration. And he's an acolyte.
We are not an equal branch of government. We are a branch of the administration. Write that down. A sitting member of Congress, a man who has served in elected office for 47 years, who filed the first comprehensive articles of impeachment against Donald Trump, who stood on the House floor and watched Charlottesville play out on television and immediately picked up the phone, just told you that the United States House of Representatives has stopped functioning as a co-equal branch of government. Not as a talking point, not as a campaign line, as a statement of observed fact from someone who has been inside that building for nearly 2 decades. Mike Johnson does not lead the House. He launders Trump's agenda through a chamber that was constitutionally designed to stop executive overreach. The courts, as Cohen noted, are occasionally pushing back. But the legislative branch? Silent, compliant, performing oversight theater, while the real machinery of power consolidation runs underneath it. Trump issues tariffs the courts have called unconstitutional usurpations of congressional authority, twice. Johnson says nothing. Trump sells pardons, Cohen's word, not ours, to people convicted of healthcare fraud and housing fraud, people who owe millions in restitution to everyday Americans who were robbed. Their victims' restitution orders get paused. Trump's allies go free. Johnson says nothing. And now the redistricting. Cohen filed his first impeachment articles in 2017. 9 co-sponsors became 17, including John Lewis, who, per Cohen, personally told his own chief of staff to put him on the bill. That was the Congress that at least had the skeleton of a spine. What Tennessee Republicans just did, with Trump's blessing, is make sure that the next Congress will have fewer people willing to do what Cohen did. That is the point. That has always been the point. You do not gerrymander a majority black district in Memphis because you are worried about partisan balance. You do it because the man sitting in the White House called a governor and said, "Find me more votes," and 10 states are running the same play, and nobody in the Republican Party is willing to say no. Steve Cohen is retiring. His district is gone. Memphis has been split 3 ways and handed to representatives who, by Cohen's own testimony, have never opened a congressional office there, have never brought a community project there, and likely will never do either. The African American voters of Memphis, who built a 19-year coalition across racial lines that almost no one believed was possible, have had their political power surgically removed. And when someone asks what happened to democracy in America, the answer will include a special session that lasted 4 minutes, a governor's signature, 9 Republican congressmen who bent the knee, and a president who called the whole thing in like a mob boss ordering a hit. Cohen called it a gangster move. He was being precise. If you are still watching this, you already know what the stakes are. Subscribe, share this, because the next Steve Cohen, the next lawmaker willing to file impeachment articles, willing to call the thing what it is, needs a House majority to work from. And that House majority starts with people who refuse to look away.